So I used to hate harmony guitars. Now I'm obsessed. What the heck happened? So I learned to play my very first chords on a harmony ukulele from the 1930s. My dad owned this. It was floating around the house. He used to play a couple of songs, and he handed it to me one day and said, hey, give it a try. So I learned to play 3 chords, a D7, a G, and a C. And the next thing you knew, I wanted to play guitar because I found out that those top 4 strings of a guitar basically match the U. That's my beginning. So you'd think I would have had an affinity for harmony right from the start. As it turns out, the Harmony Company, really their fortunes were kind of riding on the uke boom back in the 20s and 30s. In 1930, they cranked out 500,000 instruments, ukes, guitars, etc. Pretty amazing, and that's in the Depression, if you think about that. So, in a uke, it kind of makes sense. Uke is a inexpensive way to buy an instrument and stay entertained during tough times. But for me, growing up in Michigan in the 60s and 70s, right there in the shadow of the Gibson factory in Kalamazoo, we looked down on harmonies. It was like harmonies were being built in Chicago, and harmonies were basically synonymous with student guitar, beginner guitar, cheap guitar, hard to play guitar. Most of the harmonies had high action coming right out of the factory. They were not easy. You'd think that's not a very good student guitar because it's not motivational for sure. I joined a band where one of the other guitarists in the band played a Silvertone. It was kind of a Bobcat style Silvertone, had a couple of gold foil pickups. It actually sounded pretty cool. But I was a total Gibson snob at the time. I was lucky enough to have gotten my brother's hand-me-down, a Gibson SG Special. It had P90 pickups. It was super easy to play, sounded great. And Bob Roby, the other guitarist, had the Silvertone that was kind of tough to play. He got the most out of it, but I'll admit I was a total snob. So it was decades before I actually was gifted my first Harmony-made guitar, and it's this Stella H-929 from the 50s. Now, here's the thing. This was given to me. It wasn't in playable condition at the time. The students that my wife and I had helped in a school rock music program wrote all over the guitar. They wrote all the thank yous to us. So this was really just intended as kind of a prize, a thank you award to us. Well, at a certain point, I handed it to my luthier at the time, and he just did a quick setup, just moved the bridge around, did a couple of things, and the next thing you knew, I had this really playable, awesome guitar. I've since done a couple of guitar discoveries about it. In one of them, I play acoustic. A sliced up onion and a raw one. Draw one. Waiter, percolator. I love coffee. I love tea. I love that Java and it loves me. Coffee and tea and the Java and me. A cup. Java Jive from the 1940s. So, and this is a great guitar for playing. If you're playing it acoustic, it sounds really cool doing that kind of old 40s style music. And then I did another one where I added a pickup to this, a Bill Lawrence A300 pickup, and did a Sheryl Crow tune. If it makes you happy, it can't be that bad. If it makes you happy, then why the hell are you so sad? This was my first Harmony-built guitar. It is a cheap guitar made with a birch body. It's got painted or stenciled on fret markings. I mean, this is a cheapie, right? It retailed for $23 when it came out back in the day. Equating that to today's dollars, it's about $200. Ironically, that's what these go for in general on reverb.com and elsewhere. So if you look for a vintage Stella, you're likely to find one and probably spend around $200, and it might need a little bit of work. Because they were more affordable than other guitars of the day, a lot of musicians got their start on either a Stella or a Harmony, acoustic or electric. Here's Stevie Nicks, for example, playing her Stella H-929, just like this one. Down through the years, it's gotten to be more common for artists to actually choose to play a vintage Harmony, even though they can choose any instrument they want. The only explanation for that is that these instruments have a certain kind of mojo. And that may not be true of every one, but often it's some of the cheaper instruments and some of the more expensive instruments are the ones that have such a unique sonic profile that there's really just nothing else like them. So that's one of the reasons why artists gravitate toward these guitars. And I've found myself, despite my previous snobbery, thinking, oh, it's got to be a Gibson, it's got to be a Martin, it's got to be a Guild, whatever. For some people, it's a Taylor obsession. I've gotten to a point now where when I pick up either my Stella or my Harmony H-59, this Rocket here, or my steel guitar, my lap steel, which is an H7, I just find that it inspires a whole different type of playing. And it's often that magic, right? The mojo of the instrument and the unique kind of affinity the guitar player has for that instrument can lead to all kinds of great discoveries and cool stuff. So I can't guarantee it, but you may find an affinity for these funky old instruments. One thing that's great about them is when you compare them to all the vintage, real guitars from Fender, Gibson, Martin, companies like that, these guitars are often very inexpensive. And yet, when you hold them and play them, sometimes you find that it just takes you to a different place. And that's often one of the most valuable things to a musician is being transported to a place where you get in touch with something that you didn't even know was in you. That guitar has something to say, and you're the medium that lets that music come out. So check them out. Go to your local mom and pop music store. See what's hanging on the wall in these old vintage Harmonies and Stellas. Give them a try and see what you think. I have found a renewed inspiration from playing these instruments, and you just might too. That's your guitar discovery for the day. Please subscribe, hit the bell. Love for you to get all the notifications for more videos. I hope you'll come back and check out the next one. See you soon.